Hello, hello. Can you hear me all right? Hello? All right, great. Thanks for letting me know. All right, how's Clovis, California? Is it hot there, Robert? Just curious. It's kind of cooled down a little bit over here. Still getting 100, but not every day like we have been. So, and I know California's kind of burning up too, so it's probably pretty hot. Cold. Only 99. Yeah. We've been actually, you all have still had a lot of fires over there, and but we've been pretty lucky in Utah. We haven't had very many fires. Only 3 or 4 is all I remember. So we've been lucky here. You guys keep burning up over there. So. Wow, 2 tornadoes. We had some really bad, we did have some bad rain here. We got too much rain. St. George, they had flooding. People's houses were like 6 or 7 feet in their basement of water. It was kind of crazy. And so we've had a little bit of flooding because we kind of had a lot of rain. Provo, you know, down in Utah County, we really didn't get very much rain. Just little sprinkles here and there. But up north, and then down south, down in St. George and stuff, we went pretty heavy. Yeah. Thanks for sending us your smoke there, Robert. Yeah, all of that jet stream, bringing all that over our way. Thanks a bunch. All righty. Well, thank you for joining. Sorry I haven't had a bunch of, I should have had an additional session or 2 earlier. I'm just falling behind, and I'm preparing for BYU Education Week, where I've been asked to present like 4 presentations. So I was kind of buried in that for a little bit. I still got some more edits to put in it, but at least I feel comfortable enough to where if I have to go with what I have, that they won't run me out of town. So hopefully not. So start asking your questions online, and I've got some questions that people have submitted. So we'll get going here. See, Keith, we'll go ahead and do yours first. You say, can you explain how to delete an account that someone set up by mistake? Yeah, you have to call in. You have to connect with support to get that removed and disabled, because I suspect you're trying to create a legitimate account that you want to do, and so you have to get rid of that account, because if there's information in there that's comparative, like a membership number or phone number or email address, you don't want to have another, you can't really have another account that has some of that. So the best thing to do is to go into communities and find the help section area and contact them and ask them to delete the account. Have the person who created the account or whoever created it up for them, have them call up and say, I'd like to have that account deleted so that I can create me a new account. Nancy, why a file would be considered a duplicate if it is the same size as another file uploaded to the memories gallery? That shouldn't be happening. We do compare files, but it should be based on a code that's based on all the bits in the file. And so they're supposed to be matching only if it's the exact same photograph or exact same memory, then it would show up as a duplicate. So it should only happen if it's the exact same photo. That some people complain the other direction around. It's like, why are there duplicates when in reality the photo is just a little different? One photo is a little bit different than the other photo. So you can also contact support on that one. They can help you with that. But I'll put a note here in my notebook about this. Duplicate file in memories. But maybe different picture. Okay. Oh, you are in support. Well, you ought to be able to get a hold of the memories, folks, I think. So you can send me an email about that, Nancy, if you want. I can get it over to them and they can answer that for us. Okay, I'm going to go to the sheet that people contributed. It says, can you share information about the future of communities? Right now, it's very confusing and clumsy to use with difficult navigation. So many categories that people seem to have a lot of trouble deciding where to post. And discussions about just about any topic can be found under almost any category. What is being done to improve things? You can see a lot of concerns under communities, ideas, family search community. Yeah, we needed to switch to a new community provider, and it was sort of short notice because we needed to make that change, and so we had a very limited time in order to set it up well, and that there will be some continued adjustments and continued refinement on it as they go. But they worked really hard to get it up in the time frame they had to get it up. So just continue to put in your concerns into those areas. They review that, and they're planning on continuing to work on it since this is just very early in the first stages of this, using this new system. Sherry asked, why can't the ordinances completed notification page show more information about the completed ordinances besides date? Name, ordinance, temple completed, and have to view a view list to see details about the ordinance. Yeah, you get a ordinance completed notification. It's just a notification. It's not much in there. It just tells you to click there to go to the completed list. And that's just simply, we're doing that simply so that we don't have to put the extra information and processing time. And that would have to be sent as an email or as a message, and which it used to be a message, and now it's a notification, because all the data that you want is right there in the list. And that list, you could just go there yourself without the notification just to see which ones are done and have completed and when they were recorded. So we're just trying to simplify the approach to give you just a notification and have you go to your canonical place where you have your list of your completed stuff. Just 2 years, it's a 2-year size, just FYI, in case you didn't know. The completed list should only show the last 2 years worth of ordinances that have been completed for you. Irene, she says, I clicked on the link to watch your May 20th YouTube Q&A, but it said video unavailable. This video has been removed by the uploader. Any suggestions on how I can listen to it? I don't know. I wasn't aware that there was an issue there. So I'll put May 20th YouTube video missing, question mark. Okay. The most recent ordinances should not be at the bottom of the list. They should be at the top of the list. I'm talking about the completed list. So if you go to the ordinances completed list, the most recent one that has been done should be at the top of the list. So, so Robert, there must be something going on there. You must be looking at a different list or something, but the completed list should have the most recent at the top. I don't understand. You have to send me a screenshot. I don't know if I buy it because I've never seen the completed list unless there's a way to sort it a different way. Let me go look real quick. I don't think there is. So I got a temple completed. Most recently, now you have to make sure you're looking at the right place. You're not looking at by birth or anything like that. You're looking at the completed date, the date it was recorded in the temple. Yeah, and there's no way to sort it any other way. So if you believe that that's what's happening on the completed list, then I need to see a picture of your completed list, please. I'm not aware of anyone ever seeing it that way. So Robert, send me an email with a snapshot of your completed list, please.
I thought I'd come over and say hello.
Oh, okay.
Hi, everyone.
Yeah, this is Cherie. She's just saying hi.
Just letting you know I'm live. Poor man still has to deal with me every day.
Yeah. So she's doing okay.
I'm having pretty good days.
Yeah, today's a new hair day, a good
That's
hair
right.
day. Yeah, I just had her hair done or something. She likes the curls.
My son just called me a poodle, though.
Yeah, well, you'll have to talk to him about that.
I'm going to.
Anyway, Cherie's doing pretty good. She's going off to therapy a couple times a week, and she's doing this pool thing. They have this single person pool that has a treadmill in the pool, built into the pool. And so they can speed it up and do all these other sort of stuff while you're in the pool, but you also get the resistance of the water as you're trying to move along on the treadmill. And that's primarily because she's had some of this neuropathy and it's been hanging around in her hip. And so she's been able to, with that exercise and going and working it, she's been feeling better and the hip's been feeling better. But she's been doing pretty well as far as her illness has been. So thank you for being understanding. Yeah, so Robert, please send me the completed list. If you could send me a screenshot of the whole thing, that'd be wonderful. That way I can see what's at the top and what's at the bottom. And we'll go see what is weird going on there. So keep asking questions in the chat, and I'm going to go on to the next person here. This is Irene. She says, what is the difference in search historical records and search historical images? Does search historical records eventually bring you to searching the same images that you would if you started with search historical images? And the answer is I do not believe that they will give you the same. I guess it's possible, but I don't believe they would give you the same image. So search historical records are indexed records. So that means that some volunteer had gone in and indexed the record, and then we stored those indexes away, and then you went into search and you typed in a name and a place and a birth date. And then we searched all of the indexes that were entered for all the record sets and find you matches of that person in any of those indexed records. So those are only indexes. The search historical images is something that was very cleverly done by our historical record team that wanted to allow people to find images that have not been indexed yet, but be able to narrow the microfilm. So let's say you have a microfilm of 200 images, and you know on this microfilm it has deaths or something like that, And you also know that it covers 3 or 4 different counties or 3 or 4 different time frames. So in those microfilms, we've gone in and grabbed what's called metadata. It's just information about the microfilm. And in that information, it'll have things like the beginning of a particular time period and the ending of that time period and the beginning of another time period and so forth, or a change in county, something like that. And so you could go in with search historical images. You enter in a little bit different information, like time frames, the place. I don't think it's likely to have any names, but it might have birth records or death records if it's mixed on the image on the roll of film. And then we'll search all of the historical images using that metadata, and then that should narrow it down. So you'll end up being moved to a roll of film, but you won't have to look at the first 150 images. It'll just plop you right at the beginning that matches your date or place, time frame, and then now you only have to look at the images maybe about that county. If you enter that county or something, you would only see those. You would start with the beginning of that county, and then you could go through the microfilm looking at digital images one at a time to try to find your ancestor. So there is difference between the two, and it was a great, clever idea to allow you to quickly narrow into the set of images about the area and time frame that you're interested in. So that's the difference between search historical records, which are index records, and search historical images, which is using data about the entries of the microfilm to help narrow down the set of images you need to look at that represent the area you're looking for. Okay? That's what that one means. Arena, she says, I understand the family history centers are beginning to open. I also understand that the family history portal is offline for maintenance. Will affiliate libraries have access to any limited access records while that portal is down? Is the remote access services request the only way to access these records? So, I'm not really, I don't know how many family history centers are opening. I imagine there are some. This portal that you're talking about is the system that allows people to access. You're specifically talking about the records that have limited access, meaning they only can be seen in a family history center. So you have to go to that center and bring your machine in there, or use one of the machines that's available and look at it. And the reason why there may be issues there is because we're having to change. It's unfortunate, but people have been hacking and stuff into some of the systems, and we have to secure it more tightly. And so we're in process of trying to work through. We've got several of our great people, engineers, just working nonstop trying to complete this work so that we can secure the records and make sure that they follow the rules that the owners of those records require. So recognize that these limited access records are records that we probably imaged on behalf of an organization, and as part of the arrangement is they're allowing us to show those to people who go to the family history centers. And it's a legitimate thing for them to ask us to do that, because they want to offer those records on their websites and they want to charge for them. And that's perfectly reasonable, because they need to be able to provide some funds to help pay for their staff and for other services that they want to work on, or provide. And yes, they're still happening. I even got an email today from one of our family history center folks in the Lehigh building where I work when I go into the office, and he told me it's still, it's not working. Some of it's not working. So it is true. We're working on trying to upgrade and update, and just bear with us just a little bit. And then we're hoping to get that going for you, and then everything should be back to the way it was before. Okay. Nothing over here new on the chat area. This is coming from Irene, maybe a different Irene, but from my person page, when I click on my photos in memory, some of the photos have a red exclamation point. When I click on the exclamation point, it says, click the image to tag Irene and the last name of this person. The problem is that I don't want to tag Irene, because if I'm not in the pictures, I just want to tag those people in the picture. I can't figure out how to make the red exclamation point go away. Here's my info in case you need it. Okay, well, I'll go look at that, Irene. But the red arrow says that that you have identified that whoever this person is in the picture. And when you do that, then it wants to have a box around the face. So you could do one of two things. One, don't identify that person as in the picture. Or if this person is a living person, then you shouldn't worry about it, because if this is a living person and you're attaching, you're saying that this square of this person is this living person, and that living person is in the tree because it's in your personal space. No one else will be able to see that picture, because that person, or nobody else will see that box with the name of the person. Only the individual who created the tag for that person will see that person. So let's say that John is living, and I'm looking at a person in the tree, and John happens to have his photograph in attached to this father or something that I happen to be looking at. Since I'm living, and since John's living, when I look at the picture, if the person, maybe it's a picture of 4 or 5 people, that individual that's living will not have a box around it, and it will not show the name. And so it's as if looking at a picture where nobody knows who that person is. And so we did that on purpose to protect the confidentiality of living people. So you shouldn't have to worry about that, going ahead and putting a box around it, because the only person will see it is the person who put the tag in and put the box in along with the name. Okay. All right. Well, we may have to think of some new things to talk about. Let's see. Let me fix this thing here. All right. Okay, this is from DD. Says, I love the new merge, but I would love it even more if the death date came over and also the marriage date. Would this be possible? Thanks. Yeah. Currently, we are not doing that. I was thinking when I first looked at this one that you were thinking about source linker. And just right now, the rules are if there's already a date there, you can't overwrite it. We've talked about this. We do have it on a list of work that we'd like to do or offer. The priority of it is not going to be something that'll be done really soon. But what unfortunately you would need to do is just jot down the death date or the marriage date, and then just add that to it after you do the merge. I'll do one more, and then I'll come over to Thomas. And for Nancy, this is from Audra. A Hungarian relative has been adding people and information to my Hungarian line. Yay. This looked like a positive yay. On the people, he's added the language he put as Hungarian. All of the names are then switched to the last name is listed first in the tree and on the person page. When I print up temple cards, the order is switched there as well. The boxes are labeled, so it says the last name is the first box. I'm wondering if this will cause problem as the temple work is being done, especially baptisms and initiatories. No, I think that the folks in the temple should have been trained to recognize the order in which they say it. There is times when you have to use the first name, and there's times when you use the full name, and so they know to look in the first name box in those times, and they know to read it in order that it displays on the temple card, which would be the last name and then the first name when they want to do the full name. So they should be trained as part of their temple training, and they should be able to handle that just fine. I'm wondering if this would cause a problem in the temple work being done. No, I don't believe it is. Do I switch it to English before I print up cards? So it will be the traditional way, and I wouldn't do that. I just leave it in the way it is in Hungarian. I don't want to confuse my Hungarian relatives as he continues working, so I don't want to switch it permanently, since it seems to change it for everyone looking at the individual. Also, is this a European thing? I haven't seen it before. It's not a European thing. This is based on the country, the language of that particular person. And that selection is made, as you know, when you go to click to add their name, it allows you to select what language you want that name in. And since it's a Hungarian name and they go by last name first, then that's why the order is switched around. But don't worry about it. Like I said, temple workers should be able to deal with that and not have any problems at all. So don't worry about that. Okay, I'm going to go over here to Thomas. It says 20 plus temples, some with 2 fonts. What is Family Search doing to build on the high number of names shared to the general temple file to ensure an overflowing number of names for the members to work on? Well, we don't do anything. What is done is that members of the church share things with the temple. That's how they get there. We haven't, for those of you that know, in the past, we had extracted information, and we haven't used extracted information for years. And with the temples being closed, ordinances that's been shared with the temple has grown significantly. So there's not a problem. But as it's an interesting phenomenon we're finding is as some of the temples are opening in phase 3B, which says that youth can come in and do baptisms, what we're actually finding is that those baptisms are being, gobbled up and doing all that stuff. So, right now we're fine. I think that the temple department has a process where they balance things so that we don't run out, and we're not going to run out, so that's not a problem. So those are all working, and we believe we have enough. We had some discussions this week with the temple department about maybe readjusting the amount that are given out so that we can maintain a proper number of ordinances for future visitors. There. Okay, Nancy. For dead to living cases born in the last 110 years, why not require the person who has marked the individual deceased without any date or place to prove the death rather than having to prove living? Well, the reason why we don't require proof of death is mostly because there are many parts of the world that have no records. and because, or they don't have access to any records, or they just are never recorded. And so we did not want to prevent ordinances from being done for those who are deceased, but at the same time, we don't want to make a person who is deceased living when they're really dead. So what we rely on is you don't have to have sources or anything like that to mark a person deceased, and that's simply because, think about the past. I mean, if we're talking about 1920s or maybe mid 1800s. Sure, most people in United States and Canada and England will all have records that are fine, but think of other parts of the world where those records would not necessarily be available, and many other countries. And so we have to allow the opportunity for people to just enter in saying they're deceased, and they may not necessarily have a date or a source. That doesn't mean we don't like them. We'd like to have a source, but they're just sometimes they're not available. Unfortunately, people sometimes don't bother looking for them, which is unfortunate because they really should. But if there's a person who is marked as dead, we also don't want to let anybody make it living, because then if a person wanted to be destructive, what would they have to do? Just go around and make everybody in the tree living. And so so that's the inequity there. We allow them to mark them dead, but we don't allow them to mark them living because we want to be more careful. And also, if you're the person that created that, you can mark them dead and then you can mark them living, and that works. If anybody else has contributed to that person, then you can't make them living again, because that other person has made a contribution, and they were deceased at the time in the settings. So we have to assume that that's two people that's confirmed that they're deceased. So that's another thing we work on. But if you happen to make a person deceased and it was, oops, I shouldn't have done that, just go right back into the person and mark them living, and they'll be fine. It's only when more than one contributor is on the person that stops you from being able to make that person living. Lee says, it appears that shared ordinances are being completed last in, first out. That is not always correct, but it last in, first out. But that's because we have, if you recall, there's two parts of our new ordinance system that we're building. The first one is Ordinances Ready, and Ordinances Ready does take, what Ordinances Ready does is it tries to find the closest relative to you to take to the temple. It doesn't matter whether they were the first one in or last one in. And so it does that way in a way that you would expect it to do. We have not done the work yet to change the temple order, which is the ones that have been in the longest are the first ones that are taken. We have not completed that work. That's why it hasn't switched, Lee. It'll be coming. I'm trying to remember if we're making it this year. I think it spills into early next year before we do that. And we'll let you know when that happens. And basically then what'll happen is a lot of ordinances that have been sitting there for a long time will start getting used, which is what we want, because there's no reason for those people to have to sit around and wait when they've been for years in the next on the temple list. You also asked, thought it was cousins pulling them, but it is the obscure line, and the ordinances IEPSP are in temples worldwide. Yeah, if anybody need, well, so you're saying, Lee, that this is the last in, first out being pulled like that? The way the ordinances work in a temple today is if a temple pulls reservations and they don't, they're still using the ones that are been contributed within that district. We consume all the ones in the district we can, but if they don't have enough of a particular ordinance, then we take from another district. So that's probably what you're seeing there if it's happening by the temple. Otherwise, what it could be is somebody's pulling it from ordinances ready or something like that, or and then it's being pulled and put on their list, and they're doing the ordinance in another part of the world that were related to you. All right, I'll do Melinda here. Can we search by location? I would like to be able to put in a place, and a search would pull up all the relatives that were born, lived, or died there. No, we don't have anything like that, Melinda, for your related ancestors. So we don't necessarily hold a list of. This is sort of hinged together with the way that record managers work. So if you have a record manager, you expect to be able to see a big list of everybody in your tree, and we really can't do that. We've talked before about doing it a certain distance up and a certain distance down, because many people are tied into the big large tree that it's coalescing all into one big giant tree, interestingly enough. And that tree has well over 600 million in it. And I'm sure you don't want to look at a list of 600 and something million people. And so we don't necessarily hold a set of 200 or 300 of your closest relatives and let you list them out. So unfortunately, we don't do that. A lot of people have asked for these kinds of things, but we haven't. We've talked about it, but we haven't done anything about it. So I'm going to go over here and take one from a Sandra. I don't know, maybe the same Sandra, a different Sandra. Yes, that's the same Sandra, I guess. You must be supporting Sandra. May we replay use Zoomed family history library classes that have been recorded and are online in our callings as family history consultants. So the cat's meow, is that, where are these coming from? Is this a Roots Tech thing? Is this a classes that are in the help or in the help section? There are, which one is it? So let me know. Is this a Roots Tech stuff? Facebook. Yeah, I would think if it's Facebook. So these are family search Facebook stuff on it, or some on Family History Library. I believe that they're just fine. What I'll do is I will double check. I can't see why we wouldn't, because these are ones where they did like a Q&A session, or they did something like that. Zoomed classes. You're talking about like BYU and stuff like that? BYU kind of classes? Because I would think you could do that, but when it goes to BYU Family History Center, let me check here. Center online classes be reviewed or played. You want to play it to an audience or something, your own audience, right? It's all from Family History Library. So this is the one in Salt Lake, is what you're talking about? Oh, BYU Family History Library. Yeah. So yeah, I would think if BYU Family History Library posts them on YouTube, I would think you could play them on YouTube. I'd have to talk to BYU Family History Library Wonder if James is on. James may not be on, but James Tanner could probably let us know if that's okay. I would think it's fine if it's on YouTube. YouTube is publicly available for people to see. So I don't see anything wrong with that, but I'll double check and put a post in the Family History Ron on Facebook to let you know. Let me make a note here, little star. Post answer on Facebook. Okay. Okay, Lee, you wanted me to look at the last one, I guess. Did I skip one? Makes no sense given the wide range of temples. I don't know. What do you want me to read? Read the next item in the post too. Robert's one. Okay, so I'm a little confused there. You're saying Robert with above trying to attach the source to me. You can attach, how sources work, you should be able to attach a source to any person, including yourself. We don't right now allow living people to have memory sources because we did not want people to put their birth certificates online and passports, things like that. We didn't want them to put this personal information. Even though you could mark it private, we still wanted to protect the individual from any potential attempt at personal information. So, but you can select, if you open your person page or any living person in your tree, you open that page, we will take about 30 seconds and we will try to find a match, a source. Try to find a source that matches, the people in that person page, which would have you, your parents, your siblings, things like that. And you can attach it to that living person in your private area. Okay, so you should be able to do that. And you're saying, Robert, that it doesn't work or what? You should be able to take any source in your source box and attach it to it. Or when you open it, if it finds a source, you should be able to review that and attach it as well. Okay, let's see. All right, I'll do Melinda there. 3 of my grandsons went to Nauvoo on tour. It would have been nice for them to be able to go back 8 to 10 generations to see who their direct ancestors lived there. Yeah, I get it. There's been several requests on things like related, how we're related. Tell me all the related people in a particular town, all related people in a particular area, things like that. But we just haven't spent the time to add those core sort of features. We think knowing how you're related to somebody is really important. And there's been requests for people to say, let me take any 2 people in the tree and see how they're related. There's been requests for that as well. So we just, with the thousands of things that we have on our list to do, we have to prioritize. And, the next highest one's the one we do next. Yeah, there is a Nauvoo ancestor discovery activity. You ought to check that out. Robert, on this side, I have an image of my birth announcement from the newspaper. I made it a memory and then created a source from it. When I go to attach it to me in the source box, there is no attach link. That's because it's a memory source, Robert. Yeah. But if I go to newspapers.com and find the same announcement and create a source, I can attach it to me with no problem because it's a source, not a memory. That's why. Yeah, like I could not put a picture of my birth certificate on me, but my birth certificates, because was born in the state of Texas, all Texas birth certificates are freely visible, regardless of your age. The minute you have a kid in Texas, that birth certificate is online. So I could attach my birth certificate from the Texas collection of births to me. And that's just because we did not want people to put personal identifying information there. That's why. And we figured the way they would do it is and there's not a ton of states that necessarily release birth certificates for living people, but we felt like that was a way to sort of minimize the potential impact of somebody coming across a memory that is about a living person. Tom Kemp, you asked, you asked the same question. Let's see. What is feelings about high number of names shared by members to the general template list to ensure the overflowing number of names for the members to work on? I think I answered that one, didn't I do it? Didn't I answer that one, Tom? Right? Yeah. Yeah, there's plenty of names in the temple file right now. And what we have found is what we really need to do is get going on getting expiration dates is what we really need. I know you hate to hear me say that, but what's happening right now is during the pandemic, people did a lot of work, right? They went in and did genealogy while they were sitting in their homes waiting for vaccines or to get well or anything like that. And what happened was we actually had a huge surge of adds to Family Tree. Let me just go look. It'd be kind of fun to tell you how many people were added during like March 2020 to, I guess we consider the pandemic kind of over in like July in some sense, even though it seems to be coming on again. Let me go see. Where is it? There we go. Okay, let me get here to August. I have up to, this is beginning of August, so as of this last week. Okay. So from March, that's kind of when it started for me, March 2020 to August 2021, people have added a total of 104,462,338 people to Family Tree. So in that, and some of these during the few months, we had people adding 11 to 18 million persons to Family Tree within a 4-week period. And so a lot of activity, and much of these, I believe, I haven't, this is just my gut feel based on what I'm seeing being shared to the temple, is many of these ordinances for these persons that were added during that 2020 year and the early part of 2021, many of those have been shared with the temple. So there are tons of names, tons of ordinances to get done, and we're going to be fine. And as temples start opening up, then there'll be more opportunities. What I kind of want to do is what I think we're running into where people are putting too many reservations on the reservation list. And the reservation list is still running older code. We're in the process of rewriting it, but we've been rewriting it for about the last 6 months, and it's going to take another 6 or more to get done. And we're going to scale it up so it'll be able to handle any of the sizes, but we're struggling a little bit, and I'm sure you're experiencing it yourself, where you're having to wait a while for your reservation list to come up, or you can do a page and then you want to check somebody on another page. You can't do that. You have to just take whatever you want on that page, and if you don't take enough to fill a piece of paper, then you're wasting paper. So, there's plenty of ordinances. I would ask that you don't just print up a bunch of, a million cards and have them sitting around, because you're not going to be able to get them done. And just keep them in your list and just print up a few. I saw, by the way, another thing that's kind of interesting to understand, and I'll give you a little glimpse at that, is printing card prints. I look at those too, and during the pandemic time, during 2020 and that, there'd be like a total of maybe an average. Let me get an average here between March is kind of when it stopped. That's when people started getting shut down. So I'll go from April to February, from March, let's see, April, May, about April, May, I'll go to May, and the average per month of cards was in the, maybe 16,000 cards printed per month. So pretty small. And within the last 3 months, in June we had, in May to June was 30,000. In July timeframe, it was 51,000. And in August, between July and August, it was almost 72,000. So we're seeing lots more card printing happening as people's temples are starting to go to ramp up. And I would ask people just to, just don't print a whole ton of cards, because when you have a whole ton of cards, they're really hard to manage. They're hard to get them all done. And usually what happens is it expire. Well, we haven't been expiring, but I think we should potentially start expiring. I don't know. You'll have to give me your feel on that. I'm mixed on the expiring stuff and get it to. I don't like people to lose ordinances because they expire and your temple is not at capacity enough to where you could go and get the work done. I think we're getting close, even in phase 3, where there's enough. The scheduling was difficult, and everybody really jumped on the temples when the scheduling opened, and they could start going and do deceased ordinances. It really jumped up on the number of people that were scheduling, and that's great. But the capacity of the temple, they're not at full capacity. So I kind of have mixed bag on whether we should start expiring. My tendency is not expiring yet, because I don't want anything that you reserved last year or something to expire. But if you recall, I've stated that we are going to do a reservation limit. So I've made that clear before, and I'm going to continue to talk about it. We will be initiating a limit on the number of reservations you can have at a single time. And when you hit that limit, then you will not be able to reserve anymore until you get below that limit. And if you're over limit, meaning let's say you got 2 times the limit on your list, we're not going to remove anything from your list. It's just things will eventually start expiring because you won't be able to get them all done. And the purpose for the limit is mostly to help make sure that your reservation list is snappy, and you can get things done and printed. And whatever the limit is, as soon as you go below, you can reserve more. You can reserve a whole bunch, send them all to the temple, whatever, and then reserve more again. So I don't think it necessarily hinders your work or hinders how you get to the temple and how you do your work. It's just you just have to think about, okay, I can only have so much, and I'm just going to always keep mine full, or I'm always going to make sure I have a little space for those special people that I find when I find that ancestor, so that I can reserve it. Yes, you can always send them to the temple, and when you share them to the temple, they are not going to count against your limit. So, so that's okay. We'll allow that. Sorry, I'm not announcing the number. So I'm not going to do that, but I think it's a reasonable limit. I think some people will not think it reasonable, and some people think it's too big, and some people think it's too small. And the point is it doesn't really matter what the limit is, because the limit is going to be clearly more than you can do in in several months, and many months. It'd be more than several. On a standard approach, I would guess it would probably last most people several years to get completed. And so we're not trying to skimp on you so that you feel like you're always starved and don't have enough, but we also want to make sure that there are ordinances for others to grab and get. And things are working. Even before we stopped when we were expiring, things were working well. Things would expire and go to be shared with the temple automatically, and others would pick them up. And so those ordinances get moved around from person to person, but eventually they get done. And or if they don't get done, they get put back on the temple list in the same order they were in before, so they didn't lose their place in line. So it all seems to be working just fine, and keeping things moving, and yet making sure that we have sufficient for everybody if they want to take something from the temple or push ordinances ready and we grab them from the temple. Okay. Well, any other last questions that someone may have that they want? Yeah, that's a good thing. Yeah, Robert, I think it's a great thing too. You can find that special ancestor and go do something for them. And Ordinances Ready has been great too, because people that don't really have they can't do much genealogy because there just are no records, and it's all oral, or they just don't know. They can still go to the temple and be saviors on Mount Zion and feel that joy for helping one of God's children. Yeah, so Judy says, well, I reserve a lot of names and I share them with a large family. And we're also working on that too. As you recall, I've talked about shared family groups for a couple of years now. We're actually building it right now, and we're testing out a little prototype about it. And the first thing we're doing is allowing you to create groups, invite people to the group, and you'll be able to message the group, and you'll be able to share reservations to the group. And it'll show up on a separate reservation list for the group. And anybody in the group can take reservations from that list. So we do that as a way to help you share those reservations and not have to worry about printing them. So some people, the way they share now is they have a big old list and they print out a bunch of cards, and then they mail them to other people or hand them out, and then always hurrying to try to recollect them. Can't collect them right now because they're not being returned, but potentially in the future they'll be returned back. And then you have to incur all the cost and expense of the printing, where in reality what you ought to do is share it to the family on a family list, and then those who want to take the name to the temple, they just print it out themselves, or they take the QR code for it and go to the temple and have them scan it at the temple, and the temple will print the card out for them. So that way you're not having to print all this card and all these papers and pages and ink. You spread that around the large family that you're supplying. Although I would think it'd be good to get your family, try to find the ones that are interested a little bit and get them learning too, so that they can be future generations that help others. How many teams are recording oral ancestry? I don't know off the top of my head. I think there's several hundred. I know we've contracted with several companies to go out and do oral histories all around the world. That's not necessarily in my area that I work on day to day, but I think there's several hundred. There's several companies, and I think it's 100 or more, and they're going out to these villages and stuff and getting oral histories. Okay, I'm going to do this one last question here, and then we're going to be done. So this is Deborah. I have a question about reservations. I have someone who has passed but has reserved the names. How do we get that name released? Yeah, you have to call support. So you have to get a hold of support. So go to communities, find the help section there, and tell them that this person has passed. So there's someone who has an account and has a bunch of reservations in their reservation list, and you can contact support, and they will release the reservations if someone calls and requests that that those reservations be released. Otherwise, right now they're going to sit there until they expire. We are looking at we haven't decided how long, but we're thinking about doing an automatic thing where within maybe 6 months, we'll automatically release all reservations for deceased members. The reason why we wait 6 months is, believe it or not, there are clerks who have incorrectly marked a person as deceased when they're really not deceased. And sometimes it takes several months for them to recognize the problem. And we don't want to have all those reservations disappear for that person if they really weren't deceased. So that's why we do that. The death is pulled from the membership system, but remember, it's a clerk that's entering and picking the membership record and adding the death date. And sometimes those clerks accidentally click the wrong name and kill somebody who's not really dead. And it happens, I don't know how often, but it's more than you think. And but also we have the other problem where people die and they never mark them dead. So we have both of those problems. But for the most part, if a clerk is doing their job, within a few weeks, that person is properly marked deceased. But there are cases when they're not. All right. Hey, this has been, I'm thankful. I'm glad that someone's come. I apologize for not being regular. I have set up another one of these in our in Facebook and in YouTube. So we'll be seeing you in another couple of weeks, I think, and we'll continue on. Now I've answered all the questions that have been submitted. So please tell others that we'll be having this in a couple of weeks and to submit their questions ahead of time so that we have plenty of questions to talk about. So thank you very much. I enjoy all you do, and thank you for all you do out there. You help other people, you save other people, and try to start finding new people that can have that same joy that you have as you work with your ancestors. There's something special about that, and it changes people's hearts. It makes testimonies grow, and we need people in this world that believe in Christ, believe in God, and believe in the gospel. And this is one of the greatest ways to get them there, is by having them feel these feelings that they feel when they talk about their family and recognize that family is important. And that's because that's the Spirit telling them that it's important. So thank you, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.